Welcome to Breaking Barriers. You know your path. We know the obstacles, and we can teach you how to tear them down. And now your host, CEO and founder of Adapting Social, John Vigero.
Guys, welcome back to another episode of Breaking Barriers. I'm super excited to have you here with us today. Garces Lebrocq is with us today. Thank you so much for being here from GGL. GGL wins. If you saw the billboard, I'm sure you have. If you're in the New York, Jersey tri-state area, they're everywhere. Thank you for being here today, man.
Oh, it's great to be here, John. Thank you so much for the invite.
Of course. I'm excited to be here. And I want to dive in. So as I shared with you, typically we'll send out, a note to everybody that listens in, and typically get 200, 300 responses based on, the guest. And right now, so far for this year, this was the most, we had people asking, right? So we had over 600 people, inquire about a question, right? So obviously, guys, for any of those who asked that we can't hit that question, I apologize. We do our best. So please just bear with us on that. But so GGL, for people, let's start with GGL. For people that are like, what the hell is a GGL or what is that? Can you give us a quick background?
Sure. GGL is a personal injury law firm. So we represent injured clients. So anybody who's hurt can give GGL a call, and that's the people we represent. We've been around since 1991. It originally was G&G, Garces and Grabler, and I joined the firm 17 years ago. We became GGL, or Garces, Grabler, and Lebrocq.
Amazing. And so let's start with you. And I'm going to reverse engineer my normal process, but so what made you go into law in the first place? Why law?
Well, it's funny. I'll always say that my mother always said I'd be a good lawyer, probably because she would lose a lot of arguments to me. But the reason I went into law is I actually went to college on an athletic scholarship. I came from a blue-collar family, construction workers. I started working in construction at 14, and I received a scholarship down to South Carolina in baseball. Played baseball in high school. We were state champs, and I was recognized and offered a scholarship, or I may not have even gone to college. So it was baseball. And
what position did you play in?
I played third in high school because we had the number one player in the country playing in the state playing second base, and a guy that played AAA baseball was our shortstop. So then when I went down into college, I played second base and third base. A little bit of shortstop, but basically second base. So the way I became involved in law is I went to school and I majored in history and political science, also with another major in secondary education. So I was going to be a teacher and a coach. And I had a job lined up in South Carolina at Belton Honeypath High School. I was going to teach and coach football, baseball, and wrestling. And I had a career advisor, which they're now called. To us, they were guidance counselors, said to me, Mr. Lebrocq, with your grades and that beautiful Southern drawl, said, I think I can get you a scholarship to go to law school. Would you be interested? And I said, if somebody's going to pay for me to go to law school, I'll go. And what happened was I was accepted into Mississippi College School of Law. I applied to 3 schools that were not great academic institutions. They weren't highly rated. And I ended up going to Mississippi, graduated, and that's how I started practicing law.
Wow. And I'm sorry, and what was your guidance counselor's name? Do you remember?
I don't remember. That's terrible.
Goodness. And it was a gentleman or was it a girl?
It was a gentleman.
Wow. So it's so crazy. You know what? It's like, we've been doing this podcast now for a little over 6 years, and every time I'm interviewing people and you find out how they got into the place, whether it's career or their personal life, where they are, it's crazy how there's always like that 1 or 2 people who like they pushed you into a different path, right? Because if he never approached you on that, you probably wouldn't be sitting here.
I'd be living in South Carolina with a big old dog and a white picket fence, and probably be a doctorate, get my doctorate from Clemson, and be teaching history, and coaching sports.
Wow! So all because of that one conversation. And that's why, guys, listening in, I always say that, like, you have to be on the lookout, because certain people, especially the world we live in now, right? The kids these days, Gen Z. I'm a millennial, right? But there's the younger sides of millennial to Gen Z. They don't want to do that talking anymore. They don't want to have those, relationships. It's all text, emails, whatever. But it's like, if you didn't have that conversation, you wouldn't be on this career path, right? So it's pretty crazy. Now you find yourself, obviously, so you graduate, right? And so talk to us. So what led you up to the GGL point. So what were you doing before GGL?
So before GGL, I came out of law school. I was very young. I was 24.
Yeah.
I went to work with a firm in New Jersey doing personal injury. So I had a year of personal injury experience because it was going back from my LLM. And LLM's a postdoctorate degree in law, and it was in international business finance.
Okay.
So I went back. I lived in London for a year, worked in London, went to school in London, graduated, practiced a few years in the international sector doing international finance. And I wanted to come home. So when I came home, I came back, was offered very little money compared to what I was making.
Right.
So I decided to open up my own law firm. And if you open up your own firm, where do you open up? In your hometown where people know you.
They know you, of course.
Especially with the name Lebrocq. I think there's one Lebrocq in all of New Jersey. You know,
Yeah.
it's a
I
very
don't know any other
unusual name.
Lebrocqs.
Right. So people who knew me from medicine, knew my dad, my family from medicine, they would gravitate towards me. And
Right.
that's how I started my own practice. Very early on in the early 90s. And I started doing personal injury law because a buddy of mine got into an automobile accident. He was teed up on Route 1, severe accident.
Right.
And my first case ended up resolving at trial for $408,000.
Wow.
I took the fee, which I only charged him 25%.
Yep.
Took my $100,000, put a down payment on a building, and bought a building. And
Wow.
I've been doing personal injury ever since.
Wow. So that taught you a few things, right? So, but like, now I was going to ask you why PI. So obviously that got you involved in the personal injury side.
It was funny. I spent a year doing personal injury right out of law school.
Okay.
With a firm in New Jersey that did nothing but PI.
Yeah.
So I learned it, but I was really educated with the international finance, the
Right.
degree in business.
Right.
And that's what I was actually doing. But then I watched somebody I knew make $1 million in 3 days. And I said, you know what? I can do personal injury.
I'm getting in there.
I can do personal injury.
Yeah.
And it was a transition, a slow transition to get away from the corporate work and start
Right.
doing personal injury.
Right.
But by 2000, I was 70% personal injury,
Just fully
and then
focused on it.
by 2005, I was 100% personal injury. So for
Wow.
the last over 20, I would say 20 years, I have done nothing but personal injury work.
Wow. And now how did GGL get involved?
Well, GGL, I got the proverbial offer I couldn't refuse. I was a partner in another firm.
Okay.
And Will Garces and I started talking.
Yeah.
And he made me an offer. He said, no thanks. He made me another offer, no thanks. And he finally got to the point where I said, well, if you put that in writing, I'll come on board. He did. I came on board, and it's been a great relationship ever since.
That's amazing. Now, obviously, I know your partners pretty well now. I haven't met Bill just yet, but I've met them in different meetings and stuff. But I sat down with Will, obviously, and he shared with me how great you are at scaling, right? And he gives you a lot of credit to that point. And so when I was sitting there, I put this email out to a lot of the people who listen in. That was a lot of the questions that were asked around that, right? So some were maybe legal practice specific, but others were just business specific, right? Because I think obviously a legal practice is a business. Right. So is there like a core strategy or something that you have when it comes that you kind of apply to scaling? That was one of the bigger questions.
Well, there's so many good organizations out there.
Yeah.
Now, I have to give a little background on this.
Yeah.
I got voted. There's different publications. So
Yeah.
some publication thought I was the top litigator in New Jersey about 4 years ago.
Wow.
So I tried a lot of cases. I lived in a courtroom. My life was trying cases.
Again,
That's
right.
all I ever did. I wasn't running a law firm. I wasn't running the business. I was the top litigator at GGL.
Yeah.
Then about I would say 6 years ago, they decided to make me the managing partner, but yet I still had the heaviest caseload trying the big cases. 3 years ago, it got to the point where I couldn't carry a caseload and run a multi-million-dollar law firm.
Right.
So I gave up my caseload. I had trained some younger associates who picked up the ball and did a great job.
Right.
I started running the business, but I went from top of the mountain as a litigator to bottom of the shoe CEO.
Wow.
What did I know about running a multi-million-dollar law firm? So I started going to seminars all over the country.
Right.
I listened to the best of the best in scaling businesses, read a lot of books,
Right.
went and joined a lot of different organizations.
Right.
There's the National Trial Lawyers Association.
Yeah.
They have business of law seminars. That's one of them. I don't want to plug a lot of different organizations,
yeah.
but I'm involved in all of them.
Right.
And I would learn and pick up something from everybody, and I would bring it back and apply it. So how do you scale? The biggest thing in scaling is maintaining talent, recruiting good talent, keeping good people,
Right.
and That's how you can grow. Without the people around you, without good people, it's very difficult to grow.
Right.
And you have to market. There's so many ways to market. Like, we just have a partnership with Rutgers. It's a great way to market, but that's brand new. And over the course of 3 years, we've more than doubled our income. We do over $100 million a year in verdicts and settlements for our clients.
Wow.
And we probably net about $31 million.
That's huge.
And we want to keep growing.
Yeah.
We're projected to do over $50 million in another 5 years, and eventually we'll get to $100 million a year.
Yeah.
But how to grow?
Do you have Morgan knocking down your door trying to buy you guys out?
No, we don't have Morgan doing that. Actually, Morgan & Morgan, we had a good relationship with them. Before they came to New Jersey, they would refer us their personal injury cases. They still, to this day, refer us their workers' comp cases.
No kidding.
Yeah. So we have a very good relationship with Morgan & Morgan. And it's probably because we get good results for them, so they keep using us.
They're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. First, that's incredible. When you think about that, most businesses, so the one thing I want to say, so I did this study and started doing some research on it probably a couple of years back. But I think it's maybe 5 to 7% of employers, small businesses in America will ever do $1 million a year in revenue, right? And then the higher you go, right, let's just say 2 million, 3 million, you get closer to the 2%, right? And then it just goes from there. So how does it feel knowing that, obviously, just in the country, right? GGL is amongst the 1% technically then in just top line and even bottom line revenue.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. So we didn't know these facts till just recently.
Yeah.
And when you find out, we've received the word top 500 Hispanic law firm because my partner's Cuban.
Yeah.
So we qualify as a Hispanic law firm.
Yeah.
So we realize that we're in this business. Going to these seminars, I've had top CEOs come up to me and said, "You're the largest law firm in the country that doesn't do television, traditional television, advertising, or radio." I said, "Really?"
Yeah.
I had no idea. And we didn't do a lot of SEO. So now we're concentrating on SEO. We're getting involved in radio, and we'll probably start doing a little traditional television to even enhance the growth.
Right.
And it's really amazing. It's humbling to realize that, because what we concentrate on is representing the clients zealously as possible.
Yes.
Never undersettle a case. We prepare every case for trial.
Right.
So we're very much involved in the public relations and making sure the clients are happy.
Right.
Because we're a service industry.
That's it, man.
There's too many attorneys out there that are arrogant and think, "Oh, I'm special." It's a service industry.
Right.
The people that are special are your clients.
Yes.
And it's our honor to represent them. And, and you have to remember that.
Right.
That these people are hurt.
Yeah.
They're looking for help. It's your job to help them.
Right. And so, and being in a service industry, you know what, it's we talked about talent right before we started, and now we're kind of getting into it a little bit. Speaking of how, you scale, you have to have good talent. One of the crazier things that's going to be so interesting, because one of my questions is going to be, where do you see GGL next few years? Obviously, you alluded to wanting to get to a $100 million firm. The crazy thing is, there is this, and I'm not going to mention any names for this, but, going back, I think it was close to 10 years ago, there was this one family restaurant business in the Midwest that we work with forever. But they've been around. It's a third or fourth generation business. I think it started in 1920. And this guy calls me 10 years ago and starts, "Hey, I need help marketing. Our business is going down, whatever." And I'm talking to him, and the craziest thing that he said that separated his family for all these generations was that the family typically always worked there. And then slowly, as different family members took over the business, kids didn't want to work in the restaurant, or they didn't want to do this. They want to do something completely different. So then they had to hire people, right? Different employees. And fast forward, here he was, in this time where he says, I was in a place where my family's business was always the top customer service. Guests would be here and know, I'm gonna get the best meal. The service would be second to none. The place is clean as hell. The food is amazing. And he's and over the years, I just can't find the right talent. And then obviously fast forward, they wound up going out, during COVID for obvious reasons with business stuff and whatever else. And fast forward, I remember I had my last conversation with this gentleman where he said, the people working here, man, in this industry, it's not what it was. And, and I can't, cook, and I can't go take orders, and I can't do everything at once. So I'm closing it. And I remember it broke my heart to hear that. But what are your thoughts on that? Because I hear that so commonly now with the younger Gen Z, millennial generations being in place. Like, here's a perfect example. Do you ever hear of Patrick Bet-David?
No.
So he's a good thought leadership person in business. He exited like an insurance company, I think, for like $1 billion like a couple years back, and then he started doing more so like just entrepreneurship, leadership development stuff, whatever. And anyway, long story short, he says that he was at CVS with his daughter. His daughter had something go on, so he ran to CVS after church, and he went to the front, and this lady essentially said to him, "What do you want?" And he's like, "Dude." And I'm pretty sure he's like around your age. And he's like, to grow up in a world where you'd walk in, 20, 30 years ago, these people treated you, you were like really important to them. To be in a world now where that type of shit's happening, right? How do you plan, and how does GGL plan to not let that become a thing at your work, when it's almost like there's an overwhelming majority of people coming that are already in the workforce or coming into the workforce that have the mindset that this person, is not my boss, right? Or this person's being rude to me, so I'm gonna be rude back, screw you, right? Like there's so many people. I'm saying, how do you guys plan to kind of because obviously, like you said, service right now is second to none. How do you plan to keep that?
What we do is we really preach culture.
Yeah.
And that's not only to the clients, but to each other. So we don't allow drama in the office. We don't want any drama. We want to keep it very cordial and professional. We give anybody who gets a 5-star Google review, we give a $100 bonus to.
Love it.
So we really push that. Every client has to be spoken to at least once a month. So we're in constant contact with the clients, because one of the biggest complaints is with attorneys throughout the country, I never speak to my attorney. We never want our clients to feel that way. They want to have access to us. My partner, Will Garces, every client has his cell phone number. So if there's an issue, they'll call Will Garces to find out. And this is a huge firm. So he does get some calls, and it
happened actually while we were here with him. We were filming with him, and he had a call.
We're on it immediately. If there's any issue, we really want to take care and cater to the clients. But it's part of our culture. For example, we're taking 20 of our leaders for a 3-day workshop in Austin, Texas.
Nice.
Just because we want everybody to buy in and understand.
Yes.
One of the things I didn't like growing up was when my father would say to me, "Because I said so." Dad,
I know.
I'm a reasonable
my mom
guy.
always said that.
Just tell me why. Let me understand.
Right.
So I never want to be the guy, do this because I said so. I want you to understand why we're doing it. And when people that are on your team understand the reasoning behind it, it's a lot easier for them. Oh, I get it. That's why I need to be nice to this person. Well, yes, you need to be nice because you want to develop empathy for the person.
Right.
You want them to open up to you so you can understand what they're really going through, because how else can you portray that to a jury at some point and an insurance adjuster when you're trying to extrapolate money for their damages? You must understand to be able to empathize with your client's issues.
Right. Totally. And this popped up at one point in our time here years and years and years ago. We had this really, really talented graphic designer, right? This person, I never saw somebody, Lawrence, who could make a graphic so sexy and so fast. On average, let's just say a logo, right? Like the GGL logo. Like if you came to us from scratch and said, "Hey, I'm thinking, type font. I don't want to have just like an emblem, just like a type font, with some words and stuff, and make it look prestigious, very attorney." It could take conceptually, normally it should take 3 or 4 days because we're going back and forth internally. This person would bang out a logo and would be approved within 3 hours.
Jeez.
And it's like, but this dude was just so skilled. But he had this crazy, crazy ego. And everybody hated him in the company. It was ruffling every feather in every different direction, right? It was an HR nightmare, right? So I remember sitting there one day, and I would be, because again, I'm the CEO and founder and owner of the company. So I'd have my executive team would approach me, my HR team would approach me, like, "Dude, we have to get rid of this guy." And I would always come back and be like, I was young then. Again, this is years and years ago. I was at the time I was probably like early 20s, And I was like, can you make me a logo in 3 hours? Right? And they're like, no. And I'm like, so then get the fuck out of my office, right? Fast forward, obviously, just like you, right? Because earlier in my career, I didn't go to college, right? So like I was just kind of learning as I was going. And I remember I was in the Tony Robbins Platinum group at the time. I was the youngest kid there, and they're like, "This guy's so young. What's he doing here? This is crazy." And I told them about this, and I remember sitting in this group, and the group leader comes up and he goes, "You got to fire the dude." And I'm like, "What?" But I'm like, "Can you make me a logo in 3 hours?" Like he's like, "Doesn't matter." He's like, and that was a big lesson for me, right? But I want to get your take on this because obviously there's a lot of super talented attorneys that have these crazy egos, like crazy egos, right? And we're in the New York tri-state area, so like this is ego central of America, right outside of LA. But so anyway, so this guy goes, "You got to fire him. You got to fire him." So I'm like, oh. So I go back, I have a conversation, and it went just the way you would think it would go because it's like, why am I being fired, right? Like, what do you mean? And it's just like, hey, not a good culture fit, right? Like, but I could make you 1 million logos, like whatever. So like in your guys' case, as you guys are continuing to scale and grow this firm, have you been in that position where you're like that, or?
I think we're very lucky because we're in an unusual position. My partner, Bill Grabler, who runs the workers' comp department, is probably the top comp lawyer in the state. I was a top personal injury lawyer in the state. Yeah. So we don't have those egos because we don't have an ego, meaning Bill and I. Yeah. And I think the other attorneys say, well, if these guys don't have an ego, why should we?
Right.
They're the owners. They're great litigators. They're great at what they do. And they're down-to-earth guys. We can approach them. We can have a conversation with them. So we really don't have that egotistical attorney. But if we did, there's the 4 quadrants, that you look into to put your team members, and they're the worst ones to have. Because they are a poison, and then people don't like it. Said, he gets to act a certain way or she gets to act a certain way because they're talented and good, and they treat people terribly. So you never want that. That's just a cancer in your organization. You don't want that.
1,000,000%. But so if you were in that position, right? Let's just say you were me at that time, knowing what you know now. Would you have done the same thing? Would you have fired him?
I would have. I would have said, look, you're a great lawyer. You're just not a cultural fit for this firm.
Right.
You can go out on your own and do well.
Right.
You can go to another law firm. I'll recommend you on your ability, but you're not a cultural fit here.
Right. And I remember at that time, like now, that type of stuff is so much easier now. But back then I remember thinking like, dude, like I'm not going to find another dude like this. I still have him, by the way. But to your point, you don't ruffle feathers. So one of the questions that we had to ask, and we're going to kind of bounce around a little bit, but one of the questions that we had was, is there advice you have to win an argument? Just generally speaking, right? So being a litigator, you know that guy Chris Voss, right? You ever hear Chris Voss?
Yeah.
Is there any advice you have when you're in a situation? Your mom said you were a great arguer, right? So is there anything that you have as advice for when you're in an argument, any sort of advice to win an argument?
One of the things that's most important is try to take yourself out of your person and become the person you're arguing with. What's important to that person? Right. That's how you win an argument. You don't win an argument by, look, if you're a Democrat or Republican, you're not changing the person across the table.
Right.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
But what you could try to do is get into their mindset, see where they're coming from. And that's why, one of the things I won in law school was, it's called an amateur award, #1 in a certain class.
Right.
So I won the counseling and negotiation award because I'm a big believer in a win-win.
Right.
You have to give this person across the table from you what they want. What do they really want? Without giving up what you really want. And you don't have to let them know what you really want.
Right.
But you know what it is, so you want to get that.
Yeah.
But if you tell a person, like in a negotiation, I want $1 million. Well, this person wants to give you $500,000. You're never going to get that $1 million.
Right.
But you have to try to figure out a way to make them see that the $1 million is, look, you're not going to lose the case. Because if we go to trial, I could hit you for $10 million on this case. Or, but they don't know that you just want that $1 million, that that's where your real value is. Right. So it's really, that's a good way to win the argument. And always know your facts.
Right.
If it's an argument, know your facts, be rational, be unemotional. Doesn't mean not be passionate sometimes.
Yeah.
But you never want to be over the top.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, I think that's great advice, by the way. We got to hit it. Guys. That was fantastic. But when it comes to your tonality, right? So I want to give 2 examples in your personal life, right? Let's just say you're in a situation, it could be a friend, right? And your friend, I don't know, this guy says, oh, hey, you owe him money, or he owes you money, I'm sorry. And he's trying to say that he owes you less money than he actually does, right? When you approach a situation like that, right? Or is your tonality, so you're removing yourself, you're emotionless, facts, putting yourself in his shoes, whatever. Are you that kind of person when you're in that position? Are you like, you're gonna get stern and like are you gonna get loud? Or are you like, when you're like really cutthroat in a situation, what's your angle in tonality?
I become very calm.
Oh, okay.
I'd say it would be, dude, I lent you, let's just say $100.
Yeah.
Okay. Dude, I lent you $20 on Friday.
Yeah.
I lent you another $50 on Saturday.
Right.
And then you said you need another $30 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I gave you that. You paid me $50. You still owe me $50.
Yeah.
Pay me when you can.
Right.
But you still owe me $50.
Right.
That's
gotcha. So you owe the calm route.
Right.
Which is interesting. I like that. And it's funny, like I feel like there's so many different like ways to take it, right? But I feel like when you remain calm, at least in that situation, because typically the other party, in most cases, is probably not going to be calm, right? Like, no, it was only $50 you gave me. What the hell? I'm not giving you 50 extra bucks.
So again, it's you slow it down, and you break it down with the facts,
right?
And that's it.
Yeah. So that's good advice. Now going back to personal development, obviously, you went to all these different seminars and stuff to get yourself in that place. I want to go back to like when you were younger to now. Is there anyone in your personal life that has been like a hero to you that you like look up to?
Yeah, I guess it's most young boys. My dad.
Okay.
And the reason with my father was my dad never saw a day of high school. And my dad grew up in the slums of New York.
Okay.
His work ethic was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But what I learned from my dad is everybody loved him. When my father passed, it was like a dignitary died because with all the people that came to his funeral.
Wow.
He was everybody's friend,
Yeah.
everybody's confidant. They could come to him. My dad was the type of guy that if you called him at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, hey, I need you, he would be getting dressed and walk out the door as he was asking, okay, what are we doing?
Right.
It was that type of person. So my dad was always the guy I looked up to. Now, could he help me in business? No, he didn't have the mental acuity for that.
Right.
But he taught me what kind of person to be.
Right.
And one of his famous sayings was, don't ever make a promise with your mouth that your ass isn't willing to keep. And I always remember that, and I never make promises that I'm not going to keep.
Right.
So, and I think that's why I've been so successful in business, because people understand that if I say I'm going to do something, it's going to get done.
You're going to do it.
Yeah, it's it. And it's like I won't lie to somebody. Like if somebody comes in a case, I've heard attorneys say, "Oh, we're going to get you millions." That case is. I'll say to them, well, I don't know what your case is worth yet because you're not done treating. We don't know what all your injuries are.
Right.
There's never any puff with me or fluff. It's always very honest and very open.
Yeah.
Like even in our firm, we're open with how much we make.
Right.
And we're a very open law firm. It's very transparent.
I asked that question. It's really like touching and awesome to hear because like me being a newer father, like I shared with you, I have 3 kids. Under 2 years old. My wife and I are nuts. And that's so important to me, right? And that's kind of bring me into the next part of your question for, you being a father and the kind of like the harmony between work and your family. But hearing that's awesome because, what I learned in my life from people like yourself is your dad wasn't you don't respect your dad because he had a golden spoon in his mouth and a silver one up his ass. You respect him because he worked hard. He was doing the shit that nobody wanted to do. He was confidant to people when it probably wasn't, easy for him to do those things, but he did it anyway. And it's like we all respect people who have calloused hands and have been through real tough shit. How do you want your kids to view you?
I want my kids to view me as he was a hardworking guy, provided a great life for us, but he was always there. And here's what the example I give is, I was a trial lawyer. There's been as many as 16 trials on a Monday. You can't prepare 16 cases, but you're ready for the 3 oldest ones, okay? But I always had at least 3 trials every Monday for 15 straight years in my career. Yeah. And so I was constantly trying cases. I coached my son in football,
no
wrestling.
kidding.
I was the president of the Edison Jets football, always coached. Edison Jets wrestling,
Wow.
always coached. And then I was on the e-board of Edison Boys Baseball
Wow.
for over a decade. So I would go every day
Right.
from work to either a wrestling room, a football field, or a baseball field.
Right.
And this was year round. So I would work until 6, drive right to the field. By the time we were done, had a little dinner, kissed the kids goodnight. It was 9 o'clock. I would go
Right.
back to work and work till 1, 2 in the morning every day.
Do it all over again.
I did this for 15 years.
Wow.
It didn't matter if it was Sunday,
Right.
if it was Monday.
Right.
Every day was the same to me.
Right.
It was almost like Groundhog Day. But do you know what my kids are going to remember?
You being there.
Yeah, me being there.
That's so important.
Dad coaching me, Dad always being there for me.
Yeah.
And, one of the best, probably the greatest compliment I ever had in my life was my son coming up to me, my middle boy, who's now
Yeah.
17, and he says, "Dad, when I'm a father, I want to be just like you because you've raised me so well.
Wow.
And we're great kids. Because my daughter's now 16. My older boy's 22, graduated the University
Wow.
of Miami, and I have a great relationship with my kids. And they respect me. They know I'm their dad.
Yeah.
But yet we're close, and they can come and talk to me about anything.
Dude, that's beautiful. I mean, like, what else could you want? Like,
No,
right? Like,
it's incredible.
hearing that, come on, man, that's beautiful.
But you have to spend the time. And
Yeah.
look, I always used to joke, even when I was in law school, because I've always gone a lot, I said, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. Look, if I have to go on 5 hours of sleep so I can spend 3 hours a day with my children at an
gonna do
athletic
it.
event, my daughter was a cheerleader, so she was always cheerleading on the field.
Yeah.
She was also an athlete. I coached her in baseball. So,
Yeah.
it's just been great to be a part of my children's lives.
I love that so much. That resonates so well with me. I remember when I was earlier phase, so before COVID happened, I was constantly on the road, flying here, in my New York office a ton, going all over the place. I was never home, never saw my wife. And I remember I'd always ask, like, my more successful clients or friends, I'd be like, dude, like, how do you find the balance? How do you find the balance to be home with your wife more, whatever? And 100% of the responses were, there is none. Like, you're not going to find a balance. Like, you're going to be, if you want to scale this thing, you're going to have to always work, and, you're not going to have the time with your family and your kids. And I'm like, damn. I remember I sat down with my executive coach, and I was like, dude, I keep hearing this. Like, and, at that point in time, my wife and I, we lived together, and we were married for probably like 3 or 4 years at that point, right? And I saw her, I would wake up at 4 or 5 a.m., work out, get out of the house, and I'd be home at like 10:30, 11. And she would have dinner with me late like that, right? So she would have dinner with me late, but like that was my life. Like I was, if we were at family events, I'm on my phone, emailing, texting, doing stuff. And and he said to me, he said, if that's the life that you're going to accept, just because these guys did, then that's the life you're going to get. And I said to myself, like, you know what? Like, I can't, like, I'm not going to, because I want to be there for my kids one day. I didn't have any kids yet, but I also want to have a relationship with my wife too.
Sure.
And fast forward, it was right when COVID happened, and then I'm stuck home with her, right? And I was like, this is amazing. And like after that, because she's also my CFO of all of our different companies. And I was like, after that, like, most people are like, you work with your wife, that's crazy. But we built such a better bond, being able to spend more time together, hang out more, strategize with business more and stuff. And then fast forward, coming back into some sort of normalcy, I decided, like, hey, I'm going to make sure I make time. So like for me, I live and die by my calendar. Like if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. And and I have time every morning allotted for time with her before the kids wake up, time with my kids before the day starts. And then obviously I have it allotted after work every day. And obviously we have, even to the point where I have like date nights in my calendar. Like, and she'll put those in there. So like, hey, it's blocked, right? So I have like workout, family, this, that, like even my personal stuff's in there. But I always would go around like after that, I was like, you know what? I don't believe in a balance, right? It has to be a harmony or an integration, right? Because like, especially when you're scaling something, you need to be available. You know what I mean? So
I agree with you so much because you're integrating your family, your friends, everything. Like, for me, I was always so busy working. My friends are
right.
Usually in the legal profession somehow.
Right.
A lot of doctors, a lot
Right.
of lawyers, chiropractors.
Yeah.
These are the people that we do business with, we have lunch with, we
Yeah.
travel together. But you always have to make time for your family because at the end of the day, it's all about your family.
Come on.
That's
Yeah.
If you don't make time for your family, you're going to regret it. You know, I've heard the stories about how many hours you have with your children after they graduate from school.
My God, it's scary.
And it is scary. Now, look, I'm living it now. My son is in Miami, and he's working in Miami, has a girlfriend in Miami, so I rarely see him.
Right.
But when I see him, it's all about him.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about our time together and bonding with him.
Yeah.
And it's the same with your kids. You only have them at home for a limited period of time.
Right.
Don't blow it over your career.
I mean,
you have to make time. You can have a great career and still have a great family life.
Yeah. You got to make the time for it, right?
You do.
And I remember during COVID, you know, actually I had this conversation with your partner, Will, and, you know, obviously you came in. For people that don't know this, Lawrence is freaking jacked, for the record. Lawrence is in great shape. But when Will came in, he had this like insanely healthy lunch because we were getting ready to buy him lunch and stuff. He's like, no, I'm not going to, you know, I brought my own stuff. And then he started saying how he lost all his weight.
He did.
And I was like, I couldn't even imagine him 200 pounds, whatever the hell he said he was. I couldn't, just obviously I met him now, but I was like, I couldn't imagine you being that weight. And I remember my health, similar, right? Your kids, your family are important, but dude, your health is so important, man. It's like so many people like put their health, you know, to the side, especially when they're in a business and run a business and are scaling a business. It's almost the last thing you worry about. Like you're just like, you got to shovel stuff in your mouth. You know, some people don't eat ever. Like pre-COVID, I would probably have one meal a day because I was always running. And then COVID happened and I'm home and I'm typically a tall, skinny person, you know, since I was a kid. So like I was maybe 180, 185 always just at all times, right? COVID happens. I was 230.
Wow.
Dude, yeah, I was 230.
Big.
So for the first time in like almost like my adult life, I was home because from the time when I started the company when I was 17, I was always just out there going. So now I'm home. I'm forced to be home for however many months or, you know, a year that was. And I'm sitting there, I'm just like working and grabbing the chips and, you know, and eating whatever the hell I want to and drinking like a fish. And then the next thing you know, like a year and a half in, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I look like total shit, you know? And so the one thing I want to say just for the people listening in addition to obviously making time, this resonated with me because of what you said, but I hired like a top like nutritionist in New York City and they were like, listen, like you, no matter what you say, you can prescribe to or subscribe to the thought that like you don't have enough time, you can't, you know, worry about your health. But like at the time, you know, we got the Peloton during the Peloton boom. But it's like he was like, there's Peloton classes that are 10 minutes long that are like you could burn 300 calories. He's like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, like 300 calories. Like wake up, the second you wake up, go to that bike and do it. And then you can't make an excuse. For 15 minutes, Sean, you don't have 15 minutes. I was like, you're right. And like I got up and then the same thing with the food stuff. Get your shit in order. And what I love what you just said there, it's like people talk about when they're employed somewhere and they want to start a business, you got your 9 to 5, then your 5 to, you know, whatever, 12, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, that was you, but with your kids, right? You want to spend time with your kids. So point being is it's like, dude, like everybody listening in, like we all have those like voices in our head telling us like, you don't have the time to work out. You don't have the money to do this, or you don't have the, you know, time allocation for your wife or your family and stuff. But it's bullshit. Like you made it happen. You sacrificed sleep so that you can have a great relationship with your kids, which I think is a worthy sacrifice.
And you'll never regret it.
No, right. You'll never look back and be like, fuck, I should have slept more.
Yeah, I wish I slept more.
Yeah, I should have slept more instead of, you know, being with my kids then.
Right.
But, you know, and it goes back to the health stuff. And typically you don't care about your health until you're forced to care about your health later on in life. And so that's why it's like, guys, you got to take care of this stuff, you know? So anyway, with you, what's your routine? So I'm curious. We got one of the questions that came in was that, you know, give us like a day in the life of you, like morning to like sun up, sundown.
Probably get up at 5:30.
Okay.
Unfortunately, my only addiction is caffeine, so I'll get up. I'll have
somebody get this guy a coffee.
I'll have a quadruple espresso. People think that's extreme. Then I go right downstairs and I work out. I usually work out from 5:30 to about 7 in the morning.
Okay.
Now, when my kids would eat breakfast, I would come up and make breakfast for the family.
Right,
We'd all eat together.
Out.
Right. But now I make myself breakfast because my kids could care less. You know, they're at 16 and 17. They don't care about breakfast anymore. And then I go to work.
Right.
And then, you know, after work, sure.
Now, when you're working out, are you listening to anything in the background? Are you listening to music? Are you listening to a motivational thing?
Sometimes I'll throw music on.
Okay.
I may throw SportsCenter on, but a lot of times I work out in silence.
Okay.
Because it's my time.
Yeah, it's your time.
I start thinking about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's my mental time, and I'm usually thinking about business or what I have to do.
Right.
But it's my time, in between sets, you're thinking about this. And
Right.
Because everything I do in my workouts are timed. So it's from here, I know when my break's going to be, I go in. But after that, I go to work, I come home. Now, there's a lot of business dinners at night.
Yep.
So now that I'm not litigating every day, there's a lot of dinners. So you go out to dinner, and it's not that hard to order something healthy.
Right.
And people make a big deal. And that's the key. It's
Right.
really your diet. I've had one dessert since I was about 22 years of age, a real dessert. It's
Really?
Just, to me, it just became.
Well, and you're an
a
athlete
grocery.
too. Right?
And I was into natural bodybuilding for years. So I got to learn to eat a diet. I still eat almost every 3 hours. And I know it's been 3 hours because I'm hungry, but it's been a lifestyle for me. So it's very easy now.
Yeah.
People that are trying to start this, that want to be on a diet, I tell them, give yourself an eat day. Give yourself Saturday to eat the Big Mac, to have the banana split.
Right.
Because what's going to happen is it's Saturdays in the beginning, you're going to splurge. You're going to eat everything.
Yeah.
But then you're going to say, what, I'm really not in the mood for a banana split. I'm not in the mood for that Big Mac. I'm not. And then gradually, you're not going to need those eat days anymore. And what my eat days are is now I eat a lot of carbs on my eat day.
I was what's your cheat meal?
My cheat meal.
You like pasta?
Probably a bowl of pasta.
I was going to say,
that's probably a big cheat meal for me.
I freaking love pasta, man. All right, so I'm sorry. So you get out of the gym now. Now you're heading to work.
Yep.
Okay.
And I put in
dinner,
a full day. I may have a dinner engagement. I may not. And then that's really my day. And I'll spend time with my family at night.
Right. What I want people to really listening in here, like to really take away though, right, from that component, and some people who know Lawrence now, right, who might see this and say, wow, ultra successful, building a big brand, works with a big firm, owns a big firm, but I feel like the one thing that people bypass, right? It's almost like social media. Like people who don't know you, they're seeing your highlight reel. Right. You're currently living your highlight reel right now, right? Like, you're not litigating every day. You're scaling this firm. You're doing the great stuff you're taking care of your kids. You're living the life you want to live. They're seeing that, the people who don't know you, right? But what you said, I thought was so critical and impactful, and I want you guys listening to really take this, is you became one of the top litigators in New Jersey first. And you were doing this crazy schedule, and you were working your fucking ass off to the bone to be in this position that you're in right now. Because this is the problem that I feel like the workforce now will, if somebody's an aspiring attorney for PI, and they come in and they see you right now, and they're like, damn, I want to live that lifestyle. I want to be, in the nice house like Lawrence is, and the nice suits that Lawrence is in, and, getting the box seats at Rutgers and being a partner and stuff. I want that, right? But a lot of them don't know all of the nights that you had behind closed doors that were probably chaotic, filled with worry or whatever, stress, anxiety, whatever the hell, to get to where you are.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize it's where you come from. I grew up with 2 pairs of jeans, and I'm not talking as just a kid. Right. I'm talking about going through law school, where people are making comments because you don't have a lot of clothes.
Right, same outfits.
You don't have a lot of money.
Right.
The first time I flew on a plane, I was 24 years of age, because my grandfather died and I had to get back for the funeral.
Wow.
My first vacation, a young lady took me on vacation when I was in my mid-20s.
Wow.
I couldn't afford it. The first time, that big case I told you about, my first big case where I put the down payment on my building, I sent my parents on a cruise.
Right.
I didn't go on a vacation yet. I gave it to my parents because I was buying a building because I wanted to give back to them.
I love it.
So I'm in my 30s before I'm really even making any money, and then I'm just surviving, and I'm grinding it out. I'm working. This is no BS. 14-hour days.
Right.
I'm not asking for anything. I'm earning it.
Right.
Times I was working 2 jobs, not only as a lawyer, but I had a night job.
Right.
I was always grinding, just trying cases after cases. Then I started trying cases for other law firms. I became known as a good litigator. I was getting referrals in. So now I'm trying cases for a lot of different people. I'm trying my own caseload.
Right.
Then I become with, Garces and Grabler.
Right.
I'm not the guy at Garces and Grabler when I first get there. I have to prove myself. I prove myself over the years. They make me in charge of the personal injury department because they saw the results.
Right.
Then they make me the managing partner because they see that I'm capable of that. And then I go and take over as a CEO and gave up my caseload. This is a lifetime of work. This is the span of
That's what I want people to understand.
7 years before I got to this point.
Right.
Look, now my house is paid off, my building's paid off. I'm doing very well, but man, there were times when I had where's the next, how am I going to pay my mortgage this month?
Yeah.
Now I've got 3 kids, I have a wife to feed, I have a building that I'm paying for, I have a beautiful house that's killing me with the cost.
Yep.
So you grind it out and you just do it.
You just got to get up and
just do it. And then eventually, all of a sudden, okay, I have enough money. I can take the family on a vacation.
Right.
Then it's, okay, I can take the family on 2 vacations. I can pay the house down. Then it's, finally, you get to pay the house off. But it's, it's 37 years of my life. And look, the last 7 have been where the turn came. Are you willing to put in 30 years and grind it out to be where I am? Are you willing to get up at 5:30 every morning since you're like 19 years of age, work out, put in a full day, work hard, sleep 5 hours a night for 37 years? Are you willing to pay the price? Because no one is going to give you anything.
Nope.
Nobody owes you anything. That's for the young kids that come out. No one owes you anything.
Right.
You have to prove yourself.
Yeah.
And man, will you get the rewards. Like, we reward our good workers. The more you make, the more you make. The more you earn for your clients, the more you're going to get paid.
Right.
So, it's a matter of how hard are you going to work. If you work hard, you will be successful.
Right.
One of my ex-partners used to say, my mom always told me that the harder life gets, the harder you need to work. And it's amazing how things will work out in your favor if you're willing to put it in.
Right.
Never quit.
Right.
It's easy to say, oh, let's watch the commercials, just do it.
Yeah.
The people that make it in the world are the ones that are willing to just grind it out every day.
Yeah.
There's that freak athlete, there's that superstar that's just so gifted that they're going to excel no matter what they do.
Right.
But for the average guy like me, it's a matter of just outwork everybody else. And then you'll be the superstar, because hard work combined with a little bit of talent is unstoppable.
Yeah, I would agree 100,000%. I hit it one more time on the hype button on that one. That was fire. And I love that you said that. I love that you went in there, because I think that's the biggest problem. I'll never forget going back a few years ago. Before COVID, we had one of the bigger internship programs at like Monmouth University. We had a great partnership there. And any given time, we had 20 to 30 interns, right, that we were putting through the program, helping teach up, raise up. And I got to give the credit to my executive team. They went to college. I didn't have an internship program because I never went, but like they wanted to build one, give back to these people that are local and stuff. We had a lot of Rutgers people, a lot of people from different universities over the country. But I remember one of the first ones that we were like, this person was brilliant. We're like, hey, because that was kind of our thing. It's like, they're not working on client stuff. We're kind of raising them up. We're teaching them stuff. But one was like a star. And like that's why we wanted to do it. We're like, hey, if we see a freaking rising star, let's poach him. We'll get him in. And I remember this person was great. And, and we sat down with them. We said, hey, we want to approach you. We want to take you on as a client. I'm sorry, as a team member. And what was so wild, and this is going back, oh my gosh, I think this was like 2016. And this person was like, and again, still in college, still had a semester left. And we're like, we'll figure it out. We'll work with you on it. And they, out of school at the time, wanted like $100K, right? And this is going back to 2016, so not our inflated world now. And I'm like, $100K, where'd you get this number, right? So my HR director approaches me. They're like, "Hey, this is like, it's crazy. Like, they're asking for like a senior level salary." And when my HR person sat down with him and said, "Hey, listen, we typically look for more experience, whatever else." It was that time that I started to see the trickle effect that like people didn't want to build the portfolio first. They didn't want to go out there and build and grind or whatever else. And over the times I even had, in the past, like videographers and stuff that were younger, like, "Hey, I want a job with you guys." And I'm like, "Hey, if you want to work here, prove yourself. Like, do you have a portfolio? And if you don't, because I didn't go to school, I give people opportunities to prove themselves.
Right.
I'll take. You ever see that movie with Keanu Reeves, the Replacements?
Yes.
I'll take the fucking B team if you can show me that you can become the A team.
Sure.
Right. Because that was me. So, but over the years, I started seeing more and more and more people don't want to have that. Like I remember in the beginning, when I was 17 to save my family's house. Like I told you that story already. I was knocking on doors and willing to do shit for free. Like just, hey, let me do something for you, right? And if I do right by you, then they're going to think about me for marketing and websites. And it helped me. And what you said made a lot of sense because I don't want people to see you and your success and be like, oh, wow, okay, how do I get the elevator up there or the escalator? Because there is none, man. And all the shit that you went through that nobody's ever going to be able to see behind closed doors besides your kids and you and your wife. And even they didn't see them, sure, certain worries and things that you had behind closed doors.
Sure.
But that's why I respect you personally, right? Because you had those things, you had that crazy thing. And I know being a business owner, you don't get into this seat, and being where you are, by taking the escalator, right? And so at the end of the day, I just want people to have that grit in them because I think that has gone away now because of the modern conveniences, right? People could work from home now. They don't have to get up like you did every day for 30 plus years, get in a car, go sit in traffic or whatever the hell and commute in some cases in London and this place and that place. Like those things, gone are those fucking days now.
Right.
It's so different now. And, so now they have to build. And Dana White said something of the UFC.
I love Dana White.
Me too. He said something that penetrated me. He goes, if you're somebody right now in this world that's a badass mother effer, he's like, you will steamroll all these soft people, right? And it's the truth though, right? And that's why I asked that question to you. Like we're pitching some of the craziest companies in the world right now. And we're winning some of these pitches, right, for massive companies, Fortune 500 brands, because one of the ones that we just closed recently is a huge technology company. And I asked him, I'm like, what made you go with us? I'm just so curious. And he's like, you guys were willing to go above and beyond. I was like, I told him I'm gonna get on a plane, I'm gonna fly, pitch in person. I want to take you and the entire people out, whatever else. Nobody's like I did with you guys. Went and got lunch, hung out. Nobody does that shit anymore.
Right.
And he goes, on top of you guys having an impressive pitch and presentation, you went out of your way to want to come do this, do that, go above and beyond, right? Because it's work, but to your point earlier about customer service, it's also a relationship. And nobody wants to do that shit anymore. And so that's why I wanted to really hone in on that because, you didn't get here by just, showing up, and going right to the top. Like you had to work really hard to get here. And as how much time we got? Okay. So as we get close to the end here, I want to talk about legacy a little bit, right? And most entrepreneurs, especially that have children and stuff, think about their legacy and who they are, what they're doing, and where they want to be remembered by. So I want to reverse engineer this. I typically do this. So I have two questions for you. This one's kind of a little bit on the spicier side. But so what I asked you kind of with the kid thing already, but, if you were in a position where, again, and God forbid this, but for a simulation, if you were here and your kids never got to meet you, and in this simulation, their kids and them are at your gravestone, and they're sitting looking at him like, if you knew Grandpa, Lawrence, man, he was blank. First off, what would that read, paraphrasing, of course, that gravestone, and what would they be telling their grandkids about you? Let's start with what the gravestone would read.
Well, first thing I'd like to say is Lawrence Lebrocq, 1963 to 2063. We'll start there.
Yes, let's start there. I like it.
100 years. But I'd like it to say, here lies a wonderful, loving father, coach, and mentor. That would be what I would want to be remembered as. Not as a lawyer. Being a lawyer, a litigator, that's what I do. That's not who I am.
Right.
What I am is really a father, coach, and a mentor.
Yeah.
What would I like to be remembered as a guy who gave people opportunities.
Right.
Tough love. All the kids I coached.
Right.
It's great to see them grow up and turn into young men. But, when I was coaching, whether it was baseball, wrestling, or football, I never really gave a shit if I won a Pop Warner football game.
Yeah.
We had very, very successful seasons. It was wonderful. But it was because I taught the kids that hard work will pay off.
Right.
I probably worked my kids in every sport harder than every other coach out there.
Right.
But they would win. They'd be successful. They were small teams. Like in football, we'd be down 13-0 at the half and win 35-13 because we were just in so much better shape.
Right.
And we'd take advantage of that, run a no-huddle offense and wear the other teams down because they were much bigger. So,
right.
But teaching hard work and success, you have to win in order for that lesson to sink in. So you don't want to lose. So if I cared about winning, it was just so the kids would understand that hard work pays off through their lives. And I would tell them if I could do it, because I was that kid on the Pop Warner field or in the wrestling room or on the baseball field that didn't have anything.
Right.
If I could do it, anybody could do it because I was nothing special. I wasn't the greatest athlete. I wasn't the smartest kid in the class.
Right.
In high school, I graduated in the bottom third. Because I didn't care about high school. I cared about college, so I made the dean's list and did very well because then I realized, there's another life out there.
Right.
So, as far as how I'd like to be remembered, that's how I'd like to be remembered.
That's beautiful, man. I love, first off, let's just take note how quickly he knew all this shit. I love that. Most people are like, they have to think about it like, oh my God, he threw me off. So I love that. And then lastly, I like to motivate people. Part of why I started this podcast initially back in the day, was I'm a big personal development junkie myself. I like to learn. And I'm a believer that it's not knowledge that's power, it's applied knowledge, right? So it's like, I want to learn things, I want to execute them. And, so on this podcast, I love for people to like understand like how people were resilient through tough times. Because that's I feel like that's the gatekeeper to success, technically, right? Like when we're going through shit, you either pack up your bag and you leave and say, I can't take the pressure anymore or the stress or whatever it's bringing to you, or you say, let's go, whatever, come what may. So when it comes to like resilience, is there anything for you particularly that stands out, like an adage or a quote, or it could be something maybe your dad or somebody that said that makes you think like keep going?
Well, I can give a quote that I use on all the ball players, but first I'll say something that my mother asked me one time. She looks at me and she says, "Son, how do you do it? How do you just keep going?"
Yeah.
Because she would know all the defeats and all the setbacks and all the trials and tribulations. And I looked at her and I just said, Mom, I've been knocked down so many times. I don't know if I'm up, I'm down, but I just keep punching.
Let's go. Max is motivated right now.
And, that's really what happened. I grew up in a different era where, I was a bit of a street fighter. I grew up a little bit on the streets. Not that I'm a tough guy or anything. That's not what I'm trying to say.
Right.
It was a different era.
Yeah.
And I grew up in an era where if you quit, you were getting pummeled into the pavement.
Yeah, right.
There was nobody that was going to break this fight up. There's let's fight for 30 seconds like the kids do now and it's over. No, it's a street fight. Somebody's going to end up going to the hospital. So, I kind of took that mentality into the practice of law. It's like, I'm very polite, and when I was trying a case, I was asking for the money. But when we get into the courtroom, now it's a street fight, and it's on. Right. And I will do anything I have to win this case for my client. So through the coaching, I would always teach, what do we do when we get knocked down?
Right.
Get back up. I could go to any kid I have ever coached and look at him and say, "Hey, Bobby, what do you do when you get knocked down?" "Get back up, coach!" And they would and they're like that.
Right.
And it's not about getting knocked down in a football game, having somebody throw at you when you're playing baseball, you get knocked down. That's not what that saying's about. It's not in a wrestling match where you get taken down. What do you do? Get back? No. It's about in life, because life is going to beat you down.
Sure is.
It's a competition.
Right.
Everybody wants the pretty girl.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the A. Everybody wants the beautiful house.
Right.
The boat.
Right.
It's a competition.
Right.
You have to go out there and fight for it. And if you get knocked down, don't freaking quit.
Right.
Get back up and try again. And just keep fighting.
Right.
And it's the people that never give up that are going to succeed.
Right.
You can only lose when you quit.
I love that. And first off, love that. And when you look at, I I feel like when I look at anybody that I know that's successful, even when they had the hard times, like it's like almost like a math equation almost, right? Like for me, there were plenty of times in 16 years that I could have been like, all right, I'm walking away from this. This is too much or too whatever, right? But when you're involved in something for so long, eventually people will know your name. Eventually people will see what you're doing. Eventually you start to build some notoriety. Eventually you start to do better work. Your work improves eventually. Like it's impossible for 16 years for your work to not get better unless you're just completely terrible, right? Or they don't want to grow.
Right.
But if you're in something for so long, the compounding interest of your growth and of you as a professional and the word getting around, it only grows with that time. So back to you, like with never quitting, right? There are so many great stories of athletes, this one, that one, professionals who just stayed in the game and eventually they got their shot. And like, that's what it is. So Lawrence, I'm a big believer that time is the one asset we don't get back. So you spending it here with me today means the absolute world. If people that are watching this that are in the tri-state area, are looking for an attorney in the PI space, where can they find you?
They can find us at gglwins.com. They can find us at 855-GGL-WINS. We have 12 offices throughout the tri-state area, so it's very easy to Google us. Mm-hmm. You can look up Garces, Grabler Lebrocq, or GGL, and you'll find us.
Yeah.
And also we have those 100 billboards with the beautiful black R out there that says GGL Wins throughout the tri-state area. Yep. So we're not hard to find.
Right. If you look up when you're driving, you'll see him. But thank you so much. I really enjoyed our talk today. Thank you.
That has been my pleasure. Thank you.